Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Morin. As a result, many of us had read books on how to improve our lives and become more content. It's a light-hearted look at what not to do for those who are mentally strong. In this book, we're given a list of 13 frequent poor habits and shown how avoiding them makes us mentally stronger. We prefer to focus on the do's rather than the don'ts. Morin, a psychologist, noted that while healthy habits are important, it is often our negative habits that prevent us from achieving our full potential. When we're faced with difficulty, Morin is well equipped to give us advice on what to do. She had previously relied on counterintuitive therapeutic frameworks, but after experiencing a personal loss, she discovered that they weren't working for her anymore. She came to understand the importance of the don'ts as well as the do's. Morin's mother died suddenly in 2003. 2 days before the third anniversary of her mother's death, her 26-year-old spouse passed away suddenly. He passed away from cancer 7 years later. She discovered that the traditional optimistic approach to psychotherapy, which focuses on one's strengths and ignores one's weaknesses, had its limitations. However positively we strive to think, feel, or act, it only takes 1 or 2 poor behaviors to impede progress. Because of this, she decided to do something a little out of the ordinary when her father-in-law was diagnosed with an incurable disease. In order to maintain her mental strength, she sat down and wrote a list. Rather than making a list of what needed to be done, however, she concentrated on what wasn't to be done. She was well aware of the ease with which bad habits could be formed, such as acting like a victim, whining, and engaging in unhealthy coping mechanisms in the face of suffering. Morin sees poor habits as heavy weights, and tries to avoid them at all costs. They can bring us down, exhaust us, and frustrate us, no matter how talented we are or how hard we work. We'll take a quick look at Morin's life story and the way she views mental toughness. We'll dispel some of the myths associated with being told to be strong, and we'll learn about the 13 things that mentally strong people avoid doing. Recovering from adversity is a process that requires a shift in our thinking and behavior. When things are tough, it's the things we don't do that matter most. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's take a look at Morin's position on mental toughness. We can all improve our mental toughness. There is always room for improvement in our mental strength. I can't help the way I feel, and I just can't get rid of these negative thoughts in my head, are 2 phrases Morin frequently hears from clients. This is a common way of thinking and feeling for all of us at times. It's difficult to muster the mental fortitude to alter our patterns of behavior, perceptions, and emotions. However, there is always a glimmer of hope in the face of adversity. Similarly to how some people are predisposed to develop physical strength, some people are predisposed to develop mental strength as well. There are a number of variables at play here. When it comes to mental health issues such as mood disorders, genetics play a role. Some people's personalities lend themselves to more realistic thinking and positive behavior. Experiences in life have an impact on our perceptions of ourselves, others, and the environment. However, this does not rule out the possibility of enhancing our mental health in some way. Everybody has the ability to boost their mental fortitude at any time. Emotional control, a positive attitude, and the ability to act in accordance with one's values are all aspects that contribute to mental strength. Mental strength, on the other hand, necessitates a 3-pronged strategy. Our thoughts, actions, and feelings have the power to guide and even hinder our lives. We must choose our actions based on emotions and rational thought that are in harmony. An example of a negative self-perpetuating cycle is provided below to help illustrate the point. He may avoid starting conversations with coworkers if he initially feels shy about doing so, and this may lead to them engaging less with him. A lack of social skills causes him to believe he's being shunned. The more he focuses on this cognitive pattern, the more apprehensive he becomes in future social encounters. Identifying irrational thoughts and replacing them with more rational ones helps us to behave in accordance with our deepest values, and we learn to control our emotions rather than let them control us. Having a strong mind may seem like an impossible task at first, but do we really know what it means? Mental strength myths, facts and fiction. Firstly, mental strength isn't a matter of focusing on the bright side of things. It's important to maintain a healthy balance between optimism and pessimism. The key is to maintain a sense of reality and reason. To be mentally strong, we must act in accordance with our values, not in a tough or arrogant manner. It's not about ignoring our feelings, but rather recognizing how they influence our thinking and behavior. It's not a matter of treating our bodies like machines to the point of failure in order to demonstrate our pain tolerance. As a matter of fact, it's all about being able to recognize when our thoughts and feelings are worth listening to or challenging. Self-reliance isn't the key to mental toughness, rather, it's the ability to accept when we don't have all the answers and to seek outside assistance when needed. Finally, mental strength isn't always a sign of a healthy state of mind. Mental health and mental illness are often used interchangeably in the healthcare business. Mental fortitude is a distinct entity. Even if we suffer from depression, anxiety, or other mental health issues, we can still be physically healthy, just as we can be intellectually healthy even if we have specific conditions like diabetes. When things are going well, it's easy to think of ourselves as mentally strong, but we need to be able to draw on that strength when faced with difficulties. After a job loss or a family catastrophe, what are our options? What if we learned what not to do in certain instances so that we could be more robust in the face of stress, especially on the days when things become tough? When we ask ourselves, how can we be a little stronger than we were yesterday? Observing the 13 habits can help you gain strength. Take action instead of spending time lamenting over your mistakes. People with a strong mentality accept responsibility for their own actions. There is no doubt in their minds that life isn't always fair. The time, energy, and emotional toll of self-pity can be detrimental to oneself and one's relationships. The key, according to Morin, is to affirm the good in the world and appreciate what you already have. Marla Runyan, a long-distance runner, is an inspiring example of mental toughness. Having completed the New York Marathon in under 2 hours, she has a master's degree and has written a book on the subject. She's accomplished all this while being legally blind, which is very remarkable. When she was 9 years old, she was diagnosed with degenerative eye condition Stargardt's disease. Despite the difficulties, Runyan maintains a positive attitude and refuses to wallow in self-pity. Success for her is a result of appreciating one's resources and one's own abilities. It's always possible to select your attitude in the face of difficulty. Take control of your destiny. Did you know that Madonna received a letter of rejection from a leading record company before she recorded an album that went on to sell 10 million copies? We've all been rejected at some point in our lives, and stories like these aren't unique. Negative thoughts might have an impact on our mood. However, the trick is not to allow ourselves to become victims. Let's say you're a fan of Oprah. At the tender age of 14, she lost her baby after giving birth to a child with a rare genetic disorder. Her poverty was mocked, but she refused to let it affect her outlook on life. At one point, she was sacked because she was deemed unsuitable to be on air. It was in the midst of all of this that she managed to become a well-known host of talk shows around the world. She chose to define who she was in life, by not giving away her power, Morin explains in her essay. Those with a strong mental skeleton, like Madonna and Oprah, don't let the thoughts and feelings of others dictate their destiny. They're unwilling to cede control to anyone else. It's time to draw a line in the sand and remember that we are in charge of our own thoughts, feelings, and actions. You can't run away from it. If so, what would you like to alter? Changing careers or ending a toxic relationship might be on the list. Change and adaptability are two of the most important aspects of personal development. As a result, how can you cultivate a positive outlook on change? You may not want to leave your comfort zone, yet avoiding change is a way to miss out on the fullness of life. Pay attention to what you have no control over. Allow yourself to accept that some aspects of your life are beyond your control. Worrying about the wrong things takes up a lot of our time. Problems can't be solved by complaining, fretting, or wishing. Complaining only serves to drain you of your resources. Look no further than Terry Fox, the legendary Canadian athlete activist humanitarian. Osteosarcoma, a deadly form of bone cancer, was discovered when he was just 18 years old. His leg was amputated, and he was told that he had only a 15% chance of survival. Fox learned the day before his surgery about a person who ran the New York Marathon with a prosthetic leg. After his surgery, he was motivated to start running again and finished his first marathon. When he began his Cross-Canada Marathon in 1980, he hoped to raise money for cancer research and awareness. When his cancer returned midway through the journey, he was unable to continue, but he was still able to raise $23 million for cancer research in spite of this. Shortly after his death, he left us with an inspiring message on the importance of courage, ambition, and the proper use of our energies. You shouldn't stress about pleasing everyone. Trying to please everyone might deplete our mental resources and cause us to lose focus on our own priorities. It's easy to make decisions that don't match with our own values and priorities, but rather those of others. Bravery is required to defy the wishes of others and stand up for what we believe in. To help with this, it is suggested that we write down our top 5 values and focus on staying true to them, even if they aren't met with favor. Take risks you can afford. Taking a risk by quitting your day job to pursue a passion that you have no prior business experience is a dangerous move. It may seem risky, but if it fails, you could be out of a job. However, avoiding the risk entirely is not the solution. Mentally strong people aren't hesitant to take calculated risks, even if they try to keep the risks to a minimum. Our decisions should not be influenced by our feelings, but rather by logic. A good example of this is Albert Ellis, a well-known psychologist. In his early years, Ellis was afraid of being rejected, thus he avoided socializing with women out of dread. However, he decided that rejection would not be as painful as he had previously feared. This was put to the test by him. He visited his neighborhood park on a daily basis, where he would sit and talk with women who were sitting alone. His next question would be whether or not they wanted to go out for drinks. After speaking with 130 women, 30 of them stood up and walked out the moment he took their seat. Only one of the remaining 100 people accepted his invitation to a drink, but unfortunately he never showed up for the date. Ellis didn't care that this was a gloomy scenario. He was no longer afraid of being rejected since he had come to accept it as a fact of life. The use of fear as a risk avoidance yardstick is flawed. So, what's holding you back, and what would be worth taking a measured risk with? Ditch the memories. We don't have to live in the past just because we've dealt with it. While it is beneficial to reflect on the past and learn from it, it can also be detrimental if you dwell on it for too long. We can't enjoy the present or imagine the future if we're constantly thinking about the past or fantasizing about the future. Forgiveness and letting go of resentment are necessary to move on. Don't do the same thing over and over again. People who are mentally strong avoid repeating the same mistakes, which is another important trait. The truth is that we're prone to repeating the same mistakes, even though we'd like to learn from our mistakes and never make them again. The most important thing is to let go of your ego and cultivate humility. When things go wrong, we don't need to hide them or make excuses for ourselves. Instead, look at them as opportunities to grow. The goal is to take ownership of the situation and devise a long-term strategy. In the event that something goes wrong, ask yourself these 3 questions. What am I doing wrong? I'd like to know what I can do better the next time. Don't get bogged down in self-doubt and negative self-talk. Instead, respond with humility and honesty. Refuse to feel envious of others' success. It's easy to get swayed by other people's lofty goals and achievements. Watching someone else talk about their accomplishments might rapidly elicit sentiments of envy. In other words, we don't have to pay the price for another's achievement. By securing our own definition of success, we prevent ourselves from being swayed by someone else's interpretation. According to Morin, focusing on another person's accomplishment will not pave the way for your own. So, how would you define success if you had to describe it to someone? In addition, search for ways to assist others in their endeavors to succeed. The following is food for consideration. H.B. Reese worked for Milton Hershey, the world-famous chocolatier. Reese founded his own candy company in the same city as Hershey's while employed there. Rather than venting his frustrations on Reese, Hershey offered his unwavering support. Hershey contributed the chocolate for Reese's peanut butter cup creation. They worked together for the rest of their careers, offering encouragement and support for one another's endeavors. As a result, both men developed successful companies that eventually amalgamated. After the first failure, don't give up. Weakness is not an option for those who have the strength of character. Who better to remind us of the importance of resilience in the face of adversity than Thomas Edison? But did you know he also created a ghost machine and an electric pen in addition to the light bulb? No, I doubt it. Why? The simple reason for this is that they were all complete and total failures. These things weren't to him, however. For him, failing was an opportunity to discover what worked and what didn't work, and he viewed it as an educational experience. He viewed each setback as a step toward achieving his goal. When we are self-compassionate, we can shift our attitude about failure. A research published in 2012 looked at students who had previously failed an exam but had the opportunity to repeat it and improve their scores. A more self-compassionate approach to failure meant that students spent 25% more time studying and scored 25% higher on tests than those who were more self-critical in their approach. To be successful, You must accept the fact that you'll have some setbacks along the way. It's a sign that we're working hard to achieve our maximum potential. Don't be afraid of alone time. Do you remember the last time you had a few minutes to yourself? There is a lot going on in today's fast-paced world, and it can be difficult to find time to relax. Some people dislike being alone because it makes them feel unproductive, while others find it terrifying to be left alone with their thoughts. Instead, we cram as much activity and noise as possible into the remaining quiet areas. The psychologically robust, on the other hand, find solace in their own company. The ability to empathize, to be creative and to be restored are all enhanced by time spent alone, according to research. Our mind can be quieted and we can ponder our progress and plan for the future. You don't have to feel entitled to anything in this world. A beneficial life approach is not to sit around and wait for what we think we're owed from the world or the people in it, as the book warns. Instead, we might take inspiration from Sarah Robinson, a social justice activist. Sarah was diagnosed with a brain tumor in her early 20s. In her final months of life, she refused to think that life was unjust or that the world owed her anything because of her misfortune. Instead, she concentrated on the ways in which she could help others. Some of the cancer patients she encountered were located distant from treatment centers. It took them several hours of travel time to get to the medical facility where they could be treated. As a result, she was able to secure money for an overnight residence close to the hospital. To this day, Sarah's house is still being cared for by her loved ones and friends as a place where cancer sufferers can stay overnight. Rather than dwelling on our perceived deservingness, how about adopting Sarah's approach? You shouldn't expect results right away. Do you remember the last time you made a New Year's resolution and kept to it? A research conducted in 1972 indicated that 25% of participants gave up on their New Year's resolutions after just 15 weeks. In 1989, a similar study found that after just 1 week, people tend to give up on their resolutions. As a result, it's tempting to overestimate our talents and underestimate how long change takes. We've grown accustomed to a fast-paced world where we don't have to wait around for anything. Self-improvement is in direct conflict with this. Developing oneself is a long-term process, not a sprint, and bumps and disappointments are inevitable. It's important to have expectations that are reasonable. There are no shortcuts to success, and progress isn't always immediately apparent. As if we were taking a step back. It's recommended that you keep your eyes on the prize and constantly strive for your long-term goals in order to overcome this feeling. To sum it up, a person's physical strength and mental toughness might be likened. A workout routine is useless if we follow it up by munching on a box of donuts. In order to create lean muscle, we must also break bad eating habits. It takes a lot of effort and attention to build mental strength. In addition to forming beneficial habits, we must also abstain from harmful ones, such as negative thoughts, wasteful actions, and damaging emotions. Learn to identify the areas in your life that need improvement through self-awareness and a lot of practice, and you'll be well on your way toward coping with the challenges that life throws your way. We can begin to let go of habits that no longer benefit us if we analyze our thoughts, pay attention to our feelings, and keep track of our actions. Avoiding these 13 behaviors will help us achieve our maximum potential and enhance our mental strength, no matter what our goals are. Is there a habit that you'd rather not engage in? Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.